Hey there, Skullheads. I'm Snags.
And I'm old Silky.
And we're going to rap to you cats tonight about old Duane Allman, a.k.a. Skydog, the legendary, the one and only master of the slide guitar, up there with Miles Davis as far as one of those cats who you can instantly recognize because of his tone. There
Yeah.
was only one Skydog, and he died too early. And
He
we're going to
died
wrap
way
it
too
up.
early. You think about the all, two albums with the Hourglass and all the session work he did. So many artists that he, sat in on and lent his talent to. And, you know, to die at the age of 24, it's just out. It's such a tragedy.
It's hardcore, and some of you cats, most of you cats, listen to this is because you know who Dwayne is, and you want to hear what our brilliant minds think about Dwayne and what we're going to say. And then there's probably a couple of you idiots who don't know who Dwayne is, and you'll find out. But I do want to start a couple personal anecdotes. Anecdotes. Um, uh, I guess it was like 2 years ago. We used to have these Monday meetings at work, and I'm a marketing guy there, and um, it was the whole company on these Zoom meetings spread out across the country. And I get a lot of requests from salespeople about, hey, can you help me out with this or that, marketing materials, what have you. And I basically laid down a new guideline. I said, if anybody comes to me that wants help with anything, you first have to say Duane Allman is the Messiah if you want any help with it. And literally for like the next couple of weeks, I'd have people calling me up going, hey, man, Duane Allman is the Messiah. Can you help me with this flyer?
That's fantastic.
It was hilarious.
Sometimes you have to school these people.
Oh,
As we
absolutely.
go through our day, it just astounds me how many people just have no idea who any of these bands are.
Well, a lot of these,
Nor do they care, which is another. You're like, how do you? What are you into? And we are uh, possibly a dying breed. I think there's always going to be people that listen to music and appreciate real music, but there's just such a huge, gross amount of people that their day to day is just what's on social media, what's on TikTok, what's on YouTube. Very short attention span. They're just into what these um, you know what these things show them. They don't look for anything. It's just whatever they're shown.
that's definitely a trend in society. People just being passive. They
Yeah,
just intake whatever's being fed to them, and then they blurt it back
yeah.
out. And
They don't want to actively track something down or they're just whatever YouTube shows me, that's what I need to be into. Um, you know, the latest Taylor Swift
yeah,
situation,
that's
whatever.
exactly who I was thinking
It's
of.
like,
Yeah,
good God, man.
yeah, yep,
Um,
yep.
I don't care one way or the other, but like, could we all just move on and leave her alone and find something else to worry about?
I'm not even that aware of it. I don't
Yeah.
really
Well, like if you
want.
watch football, it's like that's now
Yeah.
part of it. They want to,
I know.
it's
NFL is
just
like the
absurd.
NFL to me is like a world the
The wrestling.
WW.
Yeah.
It's like WWF. Yeah,
Yeah.
half
Yeah.
half the games are probably fixed, and it's the
Oh, I
teams don't
guarantee they are. I
teams don't
guarantee.
represent any cities. Just what character of team do you like? Do you want the Lightning team? Do you want the Pirate team? Do
Mhm.
you want the Bears team? Although Chicago Bears haven't been moved, but you know what I'm saying. Like it's just it's not tied to a community. It's not. It's
Well,
just a show business.
s our little sports, bit here. I think a lot of your athletes are in the game for the notoriety, the groupies, and the drugs. It's
Yeah,
no longer about the love of the football, you know?
yeah.
So,
Yeah, I'm with you. But anyways, so they suck and we're smarter than they are.
well,
Um,
exactly.
yeah.
The
Um,
pursuit of the next band, the next song, it keeps you sharper, and music is so important. Um, it really is a gift, and there's just so much
it,
out there to
it's a
continue
it's a gift
to
from
discover.
Lemmy, and it
Yeah,
must be
uh,
cherished.
yeah.
So so here's the deal. Before we jump into Dwayne, I just want to mention. So my wife and I went down to Macon. We live in Atlanta. Macon's a little over an hour away. So we did an Allman Brothers pilgrimage a few weeks back, and the big house that the band lived in has been turned into a museum. And so we went down there. We were going to check out the museum, uh, the grave site, Duane Allman's grave, and Barry, Butch, and Greg are also all all their tombstones are right next to
They're all
Duane,
interred there.
right next to each other, same plot,
Wow,
man.
beautiful.
It's really sweet. It's a family, and uh, and then we actually did a second trip. We were doing some other stuff down there, but we hit the H&H soul food restaurant that they all used to hang out at, and I had catfish, good soul food.
How was
Fried
the
catfish.
how was the food there?
It was tasty, man.
Yeah,
Good southern soul food.
good.
So
That's
anyways,
too much of that's
we
gone.
yeah, so we get there at the big house. We walk in, and immediately you see, guitars on the walls, and some old early 70s funky looking shirt, and then right above it is a picture of Duane Allman in the Fillmore jamming, wearing that shirt. Just
Wow.
all
Yeah.
kinds of cool shit. One of Greg's organs is there. A lot of the guitars. Um, Duane, and they all lived in this house, and so Duane Allman's room is kind of made up like it used to be, and it's got his first guitar in there.
Yeah, you sent a picture of that. I was blown away at how tiny his bed was.
Yeah, it's just a little,
Like,
like
good
a
God.
2 or 3 story house. There's a party room. They call it the hookah room, where they had like bean bags and stuff. And
Wow.
right adjacent to that room is a shower, and there's no door on the shower. It's just a party room, so it's basically a whole lot of fucking going on. And then
Mhm.
they could jump in the shower and shower off before they jump back on the bean bags and shit
That's
with the
hilarious.
groupies.
And
But
I mean, if you're familiar with their first album cover, they're all sitting in a creek naked. So just walking around the
yeah,
house butt ass naked was no big deal.
they were hippies, and
Memory edition.
we rag on hippies in the show
Well, we come by it honest.
every now and then, but there's some hippies that deserve the utmost respect. Allman Brothers, Frank Zappa. There's some of them. A friend of ours, fan of the podcast, likes to say, there's a difference between hippies and freaks. Hippies are flaky idiots, like the kind we rag on.
Well, and they're
Freak,
dangerous. They'll
yeah,
fucking kill you.
yeah, and freaks are cool people that same kind of era and genre. But Jimi Hendrix was a freak.
Yeah.
Um, fucking uh, Jerry Garcia was a hippie. There's a difference.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I just can't.
um, yeah. And anyways, so we get there, we walk in, and there's this woman's got to be about 65, leather jacket, still has bleached blonde hair, managing to keep herself looking kind of cute at 65 for a 65-year-old. And before we could go explore the rest of the house, we get a 10-minute rundown on everything that's in the house, and the history of how the house became a museum, and blah blah blah. And I could tell she was speaking from experience. Finally, at the end of it, I was like, "So, what's your tie-in with all this?" And she goes, "Oh, I met the band in 1972, right after Duane died. Barry was still alive. I was 15 years old,
Oh,
and
wow.
started going to their shows." And so she eventually after she turned 18, of course, became a groupie, and she probably just got railed by all of them.
Yeah, yeah. She waited till she was 18.
Yeah, but anyways, um, it's it was an interesting. It was a really heartfelt kind of discussion about the band, and it was coming from somebody who knew him and loved him, was part of the family. So it was a great introduction. Then afterwards, we went to the gravesite and checked that out and paid homage. But and we saw the grave of Elizabeth Reed.
Yeah, it's
So
almost close by.
yeah, so the song in memory of Elizabeth Reed. Uh, Dickie Betts was screwing Boz Scaggs' girlfriend, and
On the regular.
on the regular, and Boz didn't know about it, and he wanted her, and they used to go down to this, and you can see why they hung out at this area, because it's at the very back of the graveyard. There's nobody else
They
there.
would party there and be
Yeah,
up all night playing, jamming, and I mean, I guess
yeah.
I just grew fond of Elizabeth Reed.
It's this little spot, this little cove around the grave of Elizabeth Reed, and she had a middle name. I forget what it says. Elizabeth's. I think it's Napier. Yeah, because Napier Street's. She was tied in with one of the big families in Macon because there's
Yeah.
a Napier Street. But it's Elizabeth Napier Reed, and they're on this grave. The Allman Brothers' graves. There's a big fence surrounding them, so nobody can get near them. You can just get within 10 feet and take pictures.
That's decent.
And but Elizabeth Reed's grave is wide open, so there was like candles on it and stuff. A couple beer cans. You could tell people still go down there and hang out in memory of. So he couldn't write the song about Boz Scaggs' girlfriend, so he called it In Memory of Elizabeth Reed. And there you have it. Yeah, it's cool. It's a great little experience. But so Duane, I'm gonna just give a little bit of history of the band, and then feel free to jump in with anything and everything. We don't have to go completely in chronological order, but just to kind of kick things off. So, the legendary one and only Duane Allman was born November 20th, 1946, in Nashville. He was the oldest son of Willis Allman and Geraldine Allman. Greg's born a year later in 1947, and then when Duane is around 3 and Greg is around 2, 1949, their dad gets murdered. He gave a ride. There's a great book written by Duane Allman's daughter.
Yeah, it's called "Please Be With Me," a song for my father, Duane Allman.
Yeah,
That title is a song by Cowboy, and that was recorded October of '71. One of Duane's last sessions. Cowboy had it. That album's okay. I checked it out, but yeah, Galadriel Allman wrote this amazing book about Duane, and just I want to say Snags and I both grew up kind of chasing our fathers. And so
I was more chasing my mother, actually trying to get her attention and shit. But
right,
that's a longer story. My dad was an out there cat. I always kept in distance from him.
right, but I'm saying we both kind of grew up without fathers, and so reading this book, I could really relate to her. I would say both of us knew our fathers, where she never got the chance. So
right, yeah.
You do. I was able to relate really well to her discussing Duane. One thing throughout the book, to bring up Lemmy again. Lemmy wrote a song called "I Ain't No Nice Guy After All," and
love that song.
When you read about Duane, there is a coldness. It's like the only thing he loved was plugging his guitar in, and that's how he stayed.
I think he loved his family. I think part of what you're referring to is when he basically gave his wife and kid the cold shoulder and told them to hit the bricks.
Yeah, but it's a shrugging off of responsibility, and at that age,
it's not what was going on. It's not what was going on. He almost died from a drug overdose. They were out on the road. He almost died from a drug overdose. and he felt like things were just, and everybody's getting hooked on heroin, and he felt like the whole situation was just not a good situation for his wife and child to be in, and he
Mm.
told them to hit the bricks. Um and then she moved, I think she moved back with her parents, but he broke up with her because he didn't want her or the child, he was afraid he was going to die early, which turned out to be correct, but not because of a
Yeah.
drug overdose.
Yeah.
And he didn't want them going through that pain. He was kind of, it was a it, I would say in a way it's a shrugging off of responsibility, because it's not the most mature way to deal with that kind of situation,
Yeah.
but
I
it was
well,
just,
I'm like in the book, he comes home and just walks in and says, "Yeah, you got to go."
yeah,
And you're
it
like,
was
"What
like this. He was scared. He had almost died of an overdose, and he
the-"
just
Yeah.
like, I don't want to hurt you anymore. It's um that's the sense I got from the
Yeah.
book anyway. But
Um, well, what I
he
was
ain't no
getting at
nice
is
guy after all, though. You're correct.
it,
There's
it
that
it makes
aspect.
him human because all of us, it doesn't matter how nice you are now, there's a moment in your life you can go back to and go, man, I really should have handled that better. Um, I can't fault the guy. Reading the book, he did seem a little intimidating, but that's his drive. That's what made him so uh, amazing. Um,
Mhm. It's
and
interesting too, because you have some of these bands where you had an early member that was really the spearhead of the group.
Yeah,
You can Sid Barrett with Pink Floyd, Brian Jones with the Stones, Duane Allman with the Allman Brothers, and
Malcolm with ACDC.
yeah, I'm specifically talking about the other three though, because if you'd asked who the leader of that band was in the early years of any of those bands, it would have been Duane, Sid Barrett, and Brian Jones, and they all either got kicked out of the band and died, uh, or got kicked out of the band, or went crazy, or died, and then the bands continued, and then you have Greg Allman picking up the leadership, Keith and Mick with the Stones, and Roger Waters and David
But their
Gilmour.
their fingerprint is definitely at the forefront.
Yeah, it's an interesting phenomenon. But I was when I was thinking about this earlier today, I did think about Malcolm and Angus, because same thing. Malcolm, he was the captain of that band, and Angus is continuing it on. It's interesting.
Yeah.
But uh, dipping back into the history, and feel free to interrupt and bring up anything else along the way. But I kind of like just talking about uh, how they ended up with into the Allman Brothers. They basically they Dwayne and Greg played their first gig with some local groups in 1961. They formed a band called the Escorts. That was their first band. They actually opened for the Beastie Boys. Yeah,
Beach
they
Boys.
opened for, they opened for the Beach Boys in 1965. Um, and then they
They broke
founded a
up
band
like
called.
right after that.
And if you go in the big house, the Allman Brothers Museum, they've got little clippings, actual, not photographs, but actual newspaper clippings of
Oh,
uh, escorts gigs, or publicity photos that were taken. Escorts. The next band was called the Allman Joys, and of course it was spelled ALLMAN.
yeah.
Um, then the next band after that, the psychedelic rage took off, so they decided to go
Hourglass.
psychedelic, and they started playing this band called Hourglass. All the stuff that's been recorded that's on Spotify is in our massive Duane Allman playlist. What's the name of it again?
Trouble. Uh, it's a rip from Black Hearted Woman.
Trouble and Pain as all
Trouble and
as all
pain
you
is all you
crave.
crave,
Yeah.
which I really
So,
felt uh tells his story.
yeah, in a way. Yeah, there's a dark
Way.
side. He's an inspiring cat. His playing is really inspiring, but there was a dark side to him for sure.
Yeah.
Self-destructive in a way. But so all these bands we're mentioning, whatever has been recorded as an on Spotify is on that playlist. All the stuff he did with the Allman Brothers, all the stuff he did with Derek and the Dominoes, and then a ton of stuff he did as a session musician on a lot of these R&B albums. And uh,
Yeah, the Hourglass, it did two albums of like current pop style, and they
Yeah.
really wanted to play more blues-based material.
If you read the book written by Ronnie Van Zant's best friend and bodyguard, who was with Skinner through the whole thing, they actually met Duane and Greg when the Hourglass came through Jacksonville or
Oh
wherever the hell
shit!
they were, Gainesville, wherever the hell they were living. Um, and
Freebird was written about Duane.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Okay.
Um, well, it was inspired by some girl asked Ronnie, "If I leave here tomorrow, would you still remember me?" She actually asked him that question, and he
Wow.
took that and then basically dedicated it to Duane. Uh, but we'll do a Skinner episode at some point. That's a phenomenal, underrated band. Anybody
Yeah.
who thinks Skinner is simple redneck rock doesn't know what the hell they're talking
Oh
about. That
yeah.
band's
It's just so
phenomenal.
honest, and I think too
Yeah,
many people go, "Oh yeah, Sweet Home Alabama, whatever."
yeah,
No, man.
yeah. You have no idea. Listen
Um,
to every song on every album until the very last Skinner album,
till you get it.
except Street Survivors, which was
Yeah.
the last Skinner album ever.
Yeah.
Um, all right, so they do the Hourglass thing. They move to LA. They try to plug into the whole hippie rock scene. Limited success. One thing that did happen out there that was significant, though, is Greg bought a birthday present for Duane in 1968, which was the debut album by Taj Mahal.
Yeah.
And
That
yeah,
first album is amazing.
yeah, and we talk about this a little bit in our blues episode. If you haven't heard a great conversation with local Atlanta blues legend Mudcat,
Old
and he
Mudcat.
talks about how uh, Duane Allman was inspired by the guitar player from Taj Mahal. It's also in the book that we read,
Yeah.
but the version of Statesboro Blues that the Allman Brothers play is not Blind Willie McTell's blues version.
Yeah, no.
It's a cover of Taj Mahal's interpretation of Blind Willie McTell's blues
Yeah.
version. And that Duane Allman, one of the most legendary slide guitar players in the history of the universe, learned to play slide guitar playing along with
To
Taj
that album.
Mahal,
Yeah.
and specifically that song Statesboro Blues on the Taj Mahal album.
I
So
almost feel like that song really was a template for their direction. Like that really
oh
uh,
yeah,
snapped Duane over to a whole other uh, path,
yep,
because he actually Greg gave him some sort of drug, and that album, and Duane dumped all the pills out of the pill bottle, and
yeah,
that became a slide, and he was learning slide as he listened to Statesboro Blues.
yeah. He had an elbow injury and he had some painkillers and dumped them out.
Yeah,
And
that's
and
it.
they actually sell replica. It was called Coricidin was the drug, and
Okay,
now they sell replica Coricidin bottles
that's hilarious.
that people play slide with them. But
Yeah,
so basically, the Hourglass thing didn't really work out. The band broke up, and for the first time, they kind of separated.
yeah.
Duane
Greg
Allman,
went back out to California thinking he had to fulfill some uh,
they had
contract.
a yeah, they had a
He
contract
felt
or something. Greg
he
kind of,
felt
I think,
obligated to go, and it was like, dude, tell them to fuck off.
well, I think he might have thought it was still an opportunity too.
Yeah,
He was
yeah,
the
for sure.
singer, and I think they did some Hourglass recordings without Duane. Duane goes down to Fame
Well,
Studios in Muscle Shoals, Alabama, where all the hardcore R&B is being recorded. They had a killer house band down there. And Duane just goes down there and starts camping out in their front yard until
and
finally,
he's like 18. It's just
yeah,
insane.
yeah,
It's insane that at 18 at that time you would be rubbing elbows with Clarence Carter, King Curtis, Aretha Franklin, Wilson Pickett, Otis Rush. It's crazy to me.
Yeah. And so um Duane was still under contract, I guess, with the guys from the Hourglass. I don't know exactly the whole story, but the guy who ran Muscle Shoals, Rick Hall, he basically bought Duane's contract once he realized what a good guitar. There was just this hippie kid pitched a tent in his front lawn.
Yeah.
I was like, who is this guy? But
Right.
eventually he realizes what a good guitar player Duane is, and he buys the contract for 10 grand. And the funny thing is, he ended up selling that contract to Phil Walden, owner of Capricorn Records.
Yeah.
And I forget how much it was for, but it wasn't much more than 10 grand. And Phil Walden made millions, you know?
It's funny, a similar situation, kids hanging outside, trying to just let me come in and sing a song outside of Stacks, and they're all business doing a recording session, and finally they're like, all right, dude, just bring that kid in, whatever, and it's
Otis Redding.
And by the end of the
That's a
song, they're
great
like,
story.
Jesus Christ,
Right.
Which it's like these people that are established, that's who you have to look for. Some kid comes banging around, man, get him in, check him out, give these people a shot. And instead, that once they make it, they forget where they came from, and they just, they're too cool for school. And, too many people go undiscovered until they're, until it's too late.
One of the cool things that Duane did at Fame Studios. So he played. First of all, he's playing on albums by all kinds of people. Clarence Carter, King Curtis, Aretha Franklin. You'll see it on the Duane playlist.
Yeah.
And then one of the really significant things he did, Wilson Pickett, who's one of the here's my all-time R&B singers after James Brown. Wilson Pickett, Otis Redding, and Al Green. Those three fucking rock it. They tear it up. And Wilson Pickett is down there recording an album, and Duane, this long-haired hippie kid, starts talking to him about, man, you should record Hey Jude. And the producer, I think it might have been Rick Hall, I'm not sure who was producing it, was like brushing it off, going, "No, man, it's an Otis Redding album. We're not doing a Beatles song, And
I mean, Wilson Pickett.
The producer was saying we're not doing a Beatles song.
Right. But they're recording Wilson Pickett, right?
Yes. The producer of the Wilson Pickett album is saying we're not doing a Beatles song.
You said Otis Redding. Go ahead.
Oh, okay, my bad. So basically, the band is on break, and everybody goes out to take a break. Producer wanders off, and Duane stays in there with Wilson and basically teaches him Hey Jude. He's playing along on guitar. Yeah. Wilson starts singing and convinces them that they got to do the song. Everybody comes back in. They demonstrate the song. Producer reluctantly records it. It becomes a smash hit. So there's a legendary 1968 version of Hey Jude with Wilson Pickett singing. And that's because of Duane Allman before he was famous. So interesting little story there.
Again, you got to listen to these kids, man.
They know their shit. Yeah.
Sometimes they know what the hell they're talking about. But yet, one of the, we've mentioned half. They did stuff with Duane recorded with Laura Nyro, Percy Sledge, Johnny Jenkins, Boss Skaggs, Delaney and Bonnie, which would then go on to snag Eric Clapton in like 1970. And one of the odd ones that Duane recorded with was Herbie Mann, his album Push Push, a stellar jazz album. Duane really shines on that album. It
Yeah, that's
possibly
phenomenal.
it's the worst album cover ever.
Yeah, it's like
Herbie
a gay.
Mann is
It's a still from a gay porn movie or something.
Herbie Mann is basically naked and hairy from neck to toe, and I believe the gatefold is like a closer up of just him all sweaty and shit. You're just like, bro, please. I'm
The
getting
fucking phenomenal album though. It's a
it's
really
so
good album.
good, but that cover, it's like sweet gentle baby Jesus. Can
Yeah,
we
it's
and
not
what's
subtle. We'll
funny
just put it that way. It's not a
what's funny
subtle
is
album.
there's no way to turn that album. Like you could turn it around and maybe the back is liner notes. No, it's there's the back of Herbie Mann.
It's all about Herbie Mann. It's like you've been marathoning Chips lately, and you're like, it's
No,
amazing how much this show is just about Eric Estrada. You
oh
know,
yeah, dude.
it's the same thing.
I'm up to the Kiss episode. I haven't watched it yet,
Hmm.
but that's the next one,
Tell
and
everybody what the Kiss episode of Chips is.
it's Ralph Mouth from Happy Days is this uh, like basically a Gene Simmons for the
Knockoff.
TV show, yeah. And the episodes like Devil Rock, but the first uh the first few seasons of Chips is really good nostalgia. You're like, wow, this was 1979, and for me, I'm watching it going, man, Van Halen had one album out.
Yeah,
ACDC still had Bon Scott in the band. So for me, it's just kind of a time that you're like, wow, this is crazy. And while some of the subject matter is really cartoony, um, my takeaway from the first 5 seasons is anytime the action kicks in, the house band, they had a band that played original instrumentals during these chase scenes and stuff that are throughout the whole
yeah.
series. And you want to shrug it off, but that bass player is killing it.
No, it
Uh,
was the '70s, man.
like
Funky bass playing
these
was in
guys, like
style.
they're not just relax. Oh, I'm playing soundtrack music for some silly cop show. They're like
Right.
thump. You're like, dude, Duane Allman, as yeah, as as dumb as this show is, listen to that drummer. Listen to what he's doing there, and it just cracks me up because I'm like, dude, no one is paying it, but you are killing it.
Yeah.
It,
Got the
it
wah wah pedal going.
oh, there's so many moments that we're
Some
like,
conga drums.
there's so many moments where you're like, oh my, listen to that shit. It just cracks me up. It's where somebody's like, to hell with my status. I'm gonna shine here. This is my moment, and they're doing it anyway. I think it fell on deaf ears because people were just watching Chips, but it's hilarious to me. If you go back and watch some of that, just listen to what the band's doing. You're like, good God, listen to that shit.
Yeah.
But anyway,
So
just need to watch that shit.
yeah, I'll just let you tell me about it. I'm good. But
Yeah, but you should
anyways,
watch that Kiss one. You being such a Kiss dork as you are,
the two I might watch
you should
is
watch that one.
the Kiss one and the Punk one. Those are
Yeah,
the two
the
I'm
punk
going.
one is great.
Yeah,
And they do a cliche song, but I'm like, damn, I kind of dig that song.
yeah,
What are
yeah.
you gonna do?
All right. So yeah. So basically, Duane gets his session career going, and then he's decided he wants to start his own band, and he's got a band going really without a singer, but it kind of assembles what is going to become the Allman Brothers band, and they're jamming and playing. That they get a contract. It's basically a contract for Duane and his band, and he calls his brother back from LA and says, "Come on, I
Yeah,
got a band going. Come on down."
and right here, I can think of 4 bands that there's that brother bond.
Mm-hmm.
The Allman
Wisdom.
Brothers, AC/DC, Van Halen, Pantera, where
Mm-hmm.
these guys were offered different. No, not without my brother,
Yeah, yeah. Always
and I
bring the
love
brother
that.
back again.
Being an only
The
child, you wish for
the
that kind
Kinks,
of
the
loyalty.
Kinks is another
The
brother
Kinks,
band. Yeah,
yep.
and then a band that you and I disagree on, Oasis, is another one.
Oh
You hate
yeah,
Oasis, but
fucking filthy garbage.
yeah. But anyway,
They are
first two
like a
albums.
hot diaper full of
The
shit.
the first two albums are good in
Oh
my
my
opinion. But
god.
anyways, and it's funny
Wonderwall
too
makes
because
you want to beat a baby on national television.
some of these brother bands, it's a bond that lasts forever, and then some of them they always end up fighting.
Yeah, with the Kinks especially. Oh
Yeah,
my god, you guys, you rose up when in such a time where I think musicians had to really bring their A game
yeah,
to get signed in the 60s. And the Kinks, Ray and Dave just were, even in the early 60s, were famous for these horrific fights.
yeah,
And,
yeah,
and I don't get it because the Kinks had so many moments of just brilliant songs
yeah.
all the way up. Like they were still relevant in 1980 when, the Beatles had stopped.
Paranoia, Superman. They had a lot of great songs.
Yeah.
In the early '80s. Yeah,
It's just Come Dancing. I mean, they
yeah,
were still making hits,
yeah.
although I
So
think Ray was gone.
I don't know if no,
Was
they're
Ray
both.
out of the band then?
Ray was the leader. He was never out of the band,
No,
and
so Dave.
I don't think they ever recorded anything without each other. I think they
Oh, okay.
broke up. But
I thought
and
one of them
Ray
long gone.
started doing solo shit. But so a friend of mine and I saw the Kinks in the early '80s. One of those last tours.
Or at the Fox
And
or Omni.
it was at the Civic Center in Atlanta, and
Nice.
and so we afterwards we're walking to the MARTA station, the local transit rail station here, to take the transit train back to our houses. And we're about 16 years old. We're walking down the street outside the venue, and the keyboard player, I forget his name, whoever was the current keyboard player for the Kinks, just walking down the sidewalk, and we start talking to him, and he's got a cocktail in his hand. He's a little bit sloshed, and at the time, me and my friend and this friend I'm talking about actually became a pretty accomplished musician. I have a talent ceiling when it comes to that kind of thing. Doesn't stop me from playing, but
no, dude, it's not a limitation. That's your style, and
yeah, that's it.
you need to
Yeah,
celebrate that,
I
bro.
call it ramshackle rock. But
Yeah,
anyways,
you're limiting your.
yeah.
You're in
So
your own
anyway,
way.
you're right. Yeah, you're right. So anyways, that's my way of saying shut up. So anyways, we're walking down the sidewalk, and we were about to start a band at the time, and he goes, "Oh, Roy, what's your band name?" And we were like, "Shoe," and that was going to be the band name, Shoe, SHOE. And
We could have been the Shoes.
he thought that was so fucking hilarious. We walked in the rest of the block with him. He's just laughing, going, "Shoe, that's a great band name, mate."
Shoe. No, but John Lennon said when we're talking about the Beatles, they were like, "Why the Beatles?" And he goes, "Well, it's the Beatles, but we could have been called the Shoes."
Oh, really? I didn't
Yeah,
know that.
yeah,
That's hilarious.
yeah.
Ah,
Paul might have said it, but I think it's John said that.
someday we'll do a 3-part Beatles series like we did for Motorhead. I think that's the only other band that deserves a 3-part series would be
Yeah, a brilliant middle section, the farewell, untouchable shit, and the early stuff.
Yeah. That's a band that just got better and better with every album, man. Those last few albums are my favorites. If Paul died and got replaced, the shit his replacement recorded after Sergeant Pepper was much better than the shit.
Oh yeah, you're saying if that was real, yeah.
Yeah. That's my take on that conspiracy theory. Is goddamn his replacement could rock the fuck out,
Right.
man.
Um, no, Dwayne just the one part of that "Please Be With Me" book where Galadriel talks about them moving to Florida and they just their whole time. Dwayne's not going to school; he's just going to play guitar. They spend all day out on the beach. Uh, Dwayne, Greg, and their cousin, this girl, and the book talks about just the pop songs that were on the radio, them going to the beach, and it just plays out like a movie. Like everything's just bright yellow sun and this idyllic innocent time before they would travel and tour and groupies and drugs and all the insanity up to possibly that waking moment in October when you're like, what the fuck? Dwayne's gone. Uh,
Yeah.
that was their uh bonding period, and I love that part of the book.
Yeah. The book really takes you there. As you read it, you feel like you are in all these scenes from Dwayne's life.
Yeah.
I've always liked the Allman Brothers, but reading that book just made me particularly kind of a Dwayne fanatic. He was the soul of that band.
Yeah.
It's kind of like Cliff Burton for
I love
Metallica.
that he was such a James Dean type of personality where even the people that were right there at that moment almost could sense that he wasn't going to be around long.
Yeah,
And that was his magnet. That's what uh, drew them to you. But, you know, uh, the thing that like I related to in the book was his daughter Galadriel, uh, talking about her father almost uh, like she was talking about someone else's father. She,
mm,
she didn't know him, but she had all this information about him. And I know coming up, my dad was never around, and so I just really related that. But like you said, I think we both chased our mothers. We chased after who we wanted our mother to be,
yeah.
uh,
If you
not
if you cats
necessarily
want some
our mothers.
if you cats have want some insights in our lives, download Sink or Swim. That's us in our like late teens, early
Yeah,
20. Well, late teen, early 20, right out of
in
high
the deep
school.
end of the pool, just
Yeah,
no
yeah.
nothing to touch, no base, no ground.
Right. And someday maybe we'll write a prequel and get into this raised by hippies. It's basically like being raised by savage wolves out in the middle of the wilderness.
Well, I've
Yeah.
always felt that my childhood is summed up in the P.D. Eastman book, "Are You My Mother?" which is
Oh yeah, right. Yeah, I remember you telling me
where
that.
the birds going around asking all the different animals, "Are you my mother? Are you my mother?" I to this day am drawn. I think I'm drawn to the female. Uh, I'm drawn to a lot of women, not from a sexual point, but just trying to get a mom, trying to
I bet your wife
find
loves
that.
that.
Well, no, but it's just that maternal thing. You friends at work, people
Yeah, yeah.
you
I
look
know what you're
for.
saying. I'm
Uh,
joking around.
yeah, no, but I mean, I get what it's an
Yeah,
odd thing to say.
yeah,
But it's more that "Are You My Mother" book.
yeah,
It's still so profound, symbolically,
yeah.
um, where both when my mom passed away, I was really tore up, and my wife uh, said, you're not mourning your mom, you're mourning the mother you never had.
Yeah. Ain't
And
that the fucking truth?
in that, just in that, I really related to her book about Dwayne. Um, always wondering, what if he had stayed around, and I feel like this book really was a healing process for her, but
Oh, for sure.
a gift to all the fans.
Yeah, we'll put a link to it on the site. But I do want to hit their career, the Allman Brothers' career a little bit. So,
Sure.
um, the band comes together in 1968. 2 weeks after Greg comes down and joins the band, they go to New York and they record their first album, the Allman Brothers Band, and it's moderately successful. It's not
Yeah.
not a
7
huge,
songs,
yeah.
but
Um,
they had been playing those same songs, uh, really for 2 years.
yeah, it's like, well, it's 2 weeks after Greg joined, but yeah, the band had been jamming all. They worked up all this material before Greg joined,
Yeah.
and cool thing I would have loved to have seen is they're in Macon, because that's where Capricorn Records is, and that becomes their new headquarters. And they would drive up the highway and play these free concerts in Piedmont Park in Atlanta.
Yeah.
And you and I grew up. We know Piedmont Park. It's part of the
Oh,
Atlanta landscape.
I lived a block away from Piedmont Park.
Yeah, yeah. I saw Ray Charles at Piedmont
Saw Ray
Park
Charles there. Yeah.
Jazz Festival.
Yeah.
Uh, Coco Taylor, Cannonball Adderley.
Yeah.
A lot of cool shit. The jazz festivals when all these people were still alive.
Where
Back
did
when I
you
was
catch Miles? Was that Chastain?
that was Grant Park.
Grant Park.
The
Okay.
free concert in Grant
Yes.
Park, dude. It was
Uh,
amazing. That was still one of my most. You can just hear me talk. It's one of the best shows I've ever seen in my life. Miles fucking Davis, and I'm sure I told the stories about it, so I won't repeat them.
yeah.
You guys
No.
need to go back and listen to all of our podcasts.
Yeah. This
You
is
can hear all of our
episode.
stories.
This is episode 49.
Yeah, I
Um,
think I tell the Miles story, and we do an interview with this cat named Stephen Gregory, and I tell my Miles Davis concert story in that one. So you need to listen to that. I'm not going to repeat myself. Come on,
no,
man.
no, it's better to not. But
Yeah, I'm trying to
seeing
be
BB
efficient.
King, seeing John Lee Hooker in a small club,
Oh
those
yeah, tell
those are
that. Tell now. You got to tell the John Lee Hooker story. That's a great one.
so there's a bar in San Francisco. It may not be there anymore, but it's called Biscuits and Blues, and we go in. Excuse me. We go in there on a random Tuesday night. In there about 8:30, and it's just dead. There's nothing going on, and you've already San Francisco is so hard to find a parking spot. By the time you get in somewhere, you're there. You fought to get a spot, you've parked, you've paid your meter or whatever. You're not just gonna let's go somewhere else. It's not just walk back out to your to the parking lot and grab your car. So we're in there. We get some drinks, and I had been in there enough that the bartender recognized me, and we're in there, and I'm like, good God, you don't have anybody playing tonight? And he's like, it would behoove you to stick around. And we're like, oh, what's going on? He's like, if I'm caught saying anything, just trust me, you're not going to want to leave. And I'm like, should we try to grab a table, or he's like, well, when this shit hits, you're probably going to want more drinks. You should probably sit where you're at. And we're like, oh. So now you're looking around like, is there something on the stage? Who is playing here? Then I start trying to think of who's still alive, and I'm like, dude, you can't just tell, and he's like, so we have some more drinks and we're sitting there and they start setting up, and John Lee Hooker played that night. And it was, his hands are like twice the size of your finger. It's like he's got 7-inch fingers.
I've got a painting on my wall that this girl at work did back in the 1990s. I worked with her. She was an artist. She just happened to work at this company I worked at.
Right.
Of John Lee Hooker, and it's got the big giant hands on the guitar.
Yeah, crazy. Just him wrapping around that fretboard, and just it was like, and I thought back to you and I seeing Bo Diddley at the Dark Horse, and we saw BB King, and I thought, this really, and I did see Chuck Berry. Um, so seeing John Lee Hooker like that was epic.
Yeah.
And I did see Johnny Shines at Georgia Tech once.
There you
Um,
go.
he rode the rails with Robert Johnson, so
Yeah.
that was epic. Robert Jr. Lockwood was there, and if anyone could really channel Robert Johnson on stage, Lockwood is really somebody to check out. So
There you go. It's like the best Kiss tribute band.
what, Strutter?
Strutter was a pretty good Kiss tribute band. Yeah. Let's just not go down that line.
No.
Anyways,
God damn it.
I remember we're driving out of this. We went to see Strutter. This is before Kiss got back together with the makeup and the original members for a few years. So everybody's starved for a real Kiss show, and we go to this place called the Masquerade, and Strutter comes out, and they just fucking rock it. And as we're leaving, there's this guy standing by the gate selling these shirts, and it's Bart Simpson with Gene Simmons makeup, and it says Bart Simmons, and we just like slammed on the brakes.
$10.
Take my money. Take my money.
Yeah, take my money.
We wore those shirts for fucking years. I don't know what
what's
happened.
hysterical is you went off to Denver or something.
Yeah, I went on a trip.
I had to pick you up.
Yeah.
We had not seen each other in like 5 months or something.
And we're both wearing the Bart Simmons shirts.
Yeah, I come to pick you up, and we're both wearing that same shirt. It was
hilarious.
Moron.
Anyways, Kiss finds a way to creep themselves into every episode.
It's like a bad rash.
Yeah, it is.
So they do Allman Brothers Band, 7 songs, stellar songs, and then they did Idlewild South.
Yeah.
Later, when Duane had died, I want to say like late 1980, they remastered those songs for both albums and put it out as Beginnings. So different mix, but Beginnings gave you a way to have 14 songs, because you play those albums and they're over in like 28 minutes, and
well, this is a parallel again to Kiss, because these 2 albums come out, they're moderately successful, and then what blows them off the rocket pad into the stratosphere is the live album, Live at Fillmore East.
Yeah.
And everybody discovers the Allman Brothers. Same thing with Kiss Alive. Kiss repackages their early albums as the originals.
Yeah.
So same kind of thing.
Yeah.
But Fillmore East just blew the fuck up, and suddenly the Allman Brothers were on everybody's mind. And that's when Duane meets Eric Clapton. They play on the Fillmore, on the Live at the Fillmore East tour, when they're touring to support that album and everybody's coming to see them.
Yeah.
They play a show in Miami, and they afterwards Eric's getting his band Derek and the Dominoes together at the time, and he's in Miami, and they go and jam at Criteria Studios with Derek and the Dominoes. And that's how Duane ended up being on that Derek and the Dominoes album, which again, all the Duane songs, which is most of them from that album, plus the bonus tracks, there's a bunch of long Eric and Duane jams that are on the deluxe version. All that's on the playlist that we got for you.
Derek and the Dominoes would basically, so, anyone who knows Clapton, Yardbirds, then he gets with
Cream,
John Mayall, and the Blues
John Mayall,
and then Cream. Clapton was untouchable, and then Derek and the Dominoes was really the end of Eric Clapton. That's acceptable music to play.
It was before he decided he was going to try to become J.J. Cale.
He
spent the rest of his life. Speaking of chasing phantoms,
Clapton's entire output in the 70s is just boring. Jab a needle in my arm and come back tomorrow.
And the thing is,
turn me because I'm not garbage.
he covers Cocaine and
Beer
After
commercial.
Midnight, two classic J.J. Cale songs.
Yeah,
He ended
and
up
they turned After Midnight into a beer commercial, and it's like,
and
dude.
he ends up later on, way down the road, doing an album with J.J. Cale. But if you listen to Eric Clapton solo stuff, J.J. Cale, it's good mellow stuff, but it's really interesting musically. It's phenomenal. It's worth
It's
marathoning
similar
all
to
of his
Leon
stuff.
Redbone, just a throwback to almost a vaudevillian uh, type of performer.
Yeah, J.J. Cale's got a little bit of just mellow when the Velvet Underground's really mellow,
Yeah,
just
yeah, yeah,
it's got that mellow kind of vibe and it's infectious. I love it. But Eric Clapton is like this watered, his solo stuff is like this watered down version of J.J. Cale. You could tell before he went in the studio to do a solo album, he'd go back and listen to all the J.J. Cale albums. How can I
yeah.
imitate this?
Uh,
And
I,
he's not a mellow. His
no,
strength
he's
is not as this mellow singer songwriter.
what's
And
such a drop off. You take Derek and the Dominoes and
yeah,
then basically leap 40 stories down, much like his son did.
and
Um, to
that shit was
hit
cold, dude.
that was
It was
awful.
cold.
Awful, but
Yeah,
the similarity is
yeah,
haunting.
and you hit the pavement with these solo
Garbage.
albums.
Is
But
garbage.
his talent was as a lead guitar player, and it's very similar to when Eddie Van Halen, who was the Eric Clapton of his day, decides to just stop rocking out and play mellow shit,
Yeah,
watered down mellow shit that isn't very good with
with
Sammy.
Sammy,
Same
yeah,
thing.
it's terrible. Now Clapton would have two other moments that were brilliant. Was his Unplugged album has some great moments, and you realize, wow, he can actually deliver something worth hearing. And then he did a blues album called From the Cradle that is stellar, and that was it. That was like 91, 92, and that's it. Um,
Yeah,
he's still putting out
he
albums
was.
that no one's listening to. The
Yeah,
people that
no,
are buying that don't listen to music. They're, oh, I got to get Clapton.
the
But they
people
don't
buying
know.
the Eric Clapton solo stuff don't listen to
Yeah,
Cream or Derek and the Dominoes or
no,
any
they
of the
don't.
good shit.
They're
Yeah,
Eric Clapton and BB King together. No, it's a car commercial. Avoid it.
yeah.
Uh,
It's a
or
light beer commercial.
Eric Clapton decides to, uh, you know, pay tribute to Robert Johnson, and you go, "Oh my God, this is going to be amazing." The worst album I to this day, Clapton owes me $12. That's all I got to say about
Yeah,
Clapton.
yeah.
Let's go
But
back to Duane
anyways,
Allman
if you want to
played on
hear
11
if
songs on that
if
Derek and the
if
Dominoes
you
album.
want to hear any, does that include the bonus stuff?
Well, the released album had 14 songs.
All right. So
Dwayne
yeah,
comes in on track 4
all
and
right.
plays to the end.
So our playlist has those 11 songs plus a substantial amount of bonus material,
Yeah.
and just hearing those two guitar gods jamming together. And
Uh,
if you listen to it, you got one, I'm pretty sure you got one person on the right channel, one person on the left channel, but it's phenomenal. That Derek and the Dominoes album, and especially in addition, the bonus footage with the long jams and
yeah.
stuff and some extra songs that weren't on the album. I can't recommend that highly enough. Two
No,
guitar gods.
that album is so good. It's basically George Harrison's band from All Things Must Pass.
Oh wow.
So Clapton stole
His
uh
wife and his
George's
band.
wife
Good
and his
God.
band.
That shit's
And
cold too.
yeah, so I don't mind ripping on Clapton a little bit. The
Yeah.
only other Clapton album that was good was the Rush soundtrack, which Greg Allman was in that movie, and
No,
that
there
is
you
a
go.
really solid instrumental soundtrack that Clapton did the music for.
The thing about Dwayne's playing is it's got this floating kind of soaring quality. It's kind of it befits his nickname Skydog, and a lot of that comes from because he was a huge Miles Davis and John Coltrane fan, and those guys with their horn playing. And we talked about this before on the Clash episode when uh, the drummer starts. The drummer starts getting addicted to heroin, and they had to kick him out because as a sax player, if you're smacked out on heroin, you're kind of soaring above the music. You know, you can make it work, but the drummer's got to keep that shit locked down. But anyways,
Mhm.
um, Duane was basically trying to imitate the sounds of Miles Davis and John Coltrane with the slide guitar, and that's
Mhm.
why his sound is so unique. And to this day, um, if I'm listening to Allman Brothers, I mean, I know Duane's on there anyways, but I know who Dickie Betts was a phenomenal lead guitar player
Yeah,
too.
he
But
really
I
was.
know you always know when it's Duane and when it's Dickie because
Oh, yeah.
Duane's tone is just so unique. It's like Miles. I hear a Miles Davis's trumpet. I know that's Miles. You
Yeah,
can just
it's similar
tone.
to Angus Young. Angus can't strum the string, and I'm like, "Oh," like, you know right away, 2 notes, um,
Yeah. Eddie
the
Van Halen also had the Brown sound that they called his tone the Brown sound
um,
because it just had that kind of
Duane,
crunch.
the what makes what's interesting is so it's 2 studio albums, a live album, and then, some live stuff that was on Eat a Peach, um,
Well, um,
Derek and the
third
Dom
studio album with Derek and the Dominoes. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
So it's that's really uh his Allman Brothers and Derek and the Dominoes. And
yeah.
but what the gift is that he had actually from 66 to 69 played on so many other albums. So
Session
it
workers. Yeah.
session work.
And that
Um
stuff's going to be hit or miss. Like the Herbie Mann album is his playing is phenomenal. A lot of the on some of that other stuff, and you'll hear it on the
yeah, he's playing
playlist.
some one song, but
Yeah,
it's
he's
just cool that
but it's also it's not Dwayne out there soaring through the sky
yeah,
with his
he's
slide
doing
guitar.
what the song calls for and
He's playing R&B guitar parts on some of that stuff, so it's not all going to be signature Dwayne. But
Yeah, Stevie Ray Vaughan did that. He
yeah,
sat in and lent, but in those moments with David Bowie, he's doing just what the song called for. It's not a
yeah,
Stevie Ray Vaughan and Double Trouble where he's just ringing that guitar out. Um,
yeah,
but I
yeah.
wanted to
We got to
point
do
out.
a Stevie episode at some
Oh yeah,
point. That guy was a
I
legend.
wanted to point out what's great with the Allman Brothers, the Duane era, is that there are multiple live album
Oh yeah.
that have been issued.
There's a
Um,
ton of them on Spotify. Ton
yeah,
of them. There's
there's
a Atlanta gig too. If you're
yeah. So
dig the
there's
A.
a ton of live concert releases with Duane. What the bittersweet there is that
Same
it's the
7 songs.
same 7, 8 songs. You're just like,
Yeah, yeah,
"Mother, come on, man."
yeah,
It would have just been cool if live they had just really instead of being a jam band where you're gonna get a hour and a half mountain jam,
yeah,
if they had a bunch of that they just rocked out on, that would have been really cool, and I know they could have done it, but, you
yeah,
get what you get,
yeah.
and all of those are just so amazing to hear,
The
but
original version of this playlist was like way longer because it had all of those other live recordings of the Allman Brothers in
yeah,
that era. But
yeah.
I just thought it was too repetitive, so I trimmed them
Yeah.
out.
The Allman Brothers' first album has been reissued so many times, but there you can get an expanded with the album and a live show from that time. Idlewild South also has their Live at Ludlow concert, which is really good. The Fillmore East has been expanded. There's a super deluxe of that because I think they did three
Oh yeah.
nights
There's a
and
deluxe version. All of
and
Eat a Peach has a
yeah,
deluxe version. They all
yeah,
got treatment.
brothers and sisters. They've really expanded a lot of the albums.
Yeah.
Um, the you know the Allman Brothers. If you're going to just jump in and get the key crucial set, it's the Allman Brothers, Idlewild South, Fillmore, Eat a Peach, and Brothers and Sisters. That's really the top shelf. And then the rest of the 70s, They had some live stuff. They did carry on with Dickie Betts, and it's not the Duane era, but you got some good, honest rock and roll. But towards the '80s, it was just late
It got
'70s, it was just drugs. It was drugs,
it got pretty bad, but when they got back together in 1990, those first
yeah,
few albums are with who was the cat from Government Mule that was
yeah,
with them?
that guy,
You know who I'm talking about?
yeah,
Hold on, let me get his name.
yeah. It's probably he's good enough. You should get his name, but
Personnel.
I'll know it when you say it.
Warren Haynes.
There you go.
Well, they
Yeah,
get back together, and Warren Haynes is taking Dwayne's place in the band. Chuck Leavell's gone. Basically, when Duane died, and I do want to talk about his death a little bit before we wrap this up.
yeah,
They didn't replace him with another guitar player. They replaced him with a second keyboard player, Chuck Leavell. So you had Greg Allman on keyboards, Chuck Leavell on keyboards, and he would kind of play Dwayne's parts, which is, hey, that's great. And Chuck Leavell's phenomenal. He's doing a great job kind of managing the Stones on stage. He's the band leader pretty much for them now. But uh, I feel like when they got back together in 1990, I'm sorry, and they replaced Duane with Warren Haynes instead. Warren Haynes is a phenomenal
yeah. He's ridiculous.
guitar player. And so those first few albums in the 90s are really fucking good. Seven Turns, Shades of Two Worlds,
Yep.
Where It All Begins. I think
I saw
that's
Warren
the
Haynes.
last one. Yeah.
I saw Warren Haynes with Government Mule
Mhm.
at Midtown Music, unless he was on stage with other people. And hey, Warren, and he was
Right.
ridiculous. He was
Yeah,
just
yeah. He really fit in with the Allman Brothers on those
yeah.
those three albums. Just kicked ass. And I highly recommend those early '90s Allman Brothers albums. But anyways, so to wrap up the Duane story, you ready to talk about the death? Or
Yeah. Let's.
so Cat's taking a break from touring and recording October 29th, 1971, riding his fucking motorcycle down the road, and I think like a truck pulls out in front of him or
Like a
something.
flatbed thing.
Yeah, and it's on Hillcrest Avenue in Macon. We actually drove by there too when we were doing our Allman Brothers pilgrimage.
And he's
Flatbed.
24. He's 24 and untouchable, like invincible, and just
Yeah, he's a
had that
kid
shit
at the
wide
top of
open.
his game, you know. And a flatbed boom truck stopped suddenly in the intersection, forced him to swerve sharply. He struck, it says either the back of the truck or the ball of the crane. What's the ball of the crane? Like the axle or something? I don't know.
Yeah, I think he hit the side underneath, but
Yeah. Slams into the truck, thrown from the
awful.
motorcycle. Motorcycle then lands on top of him, and he skids another 90 feet with the motorcycle on top of him,
God
and
damn.
he's just scraping the pavement.
God
Crushed
damn.
his internal organs. He's still
Yeah,
alive.
and I know he was alive. He was still alive at
Yeah.
the hospital. It just awful.
Yep, and then died several hours later.
That's just fucking awful.
And he's left with this. His legacy is just immense. Inspired so many players. Left a beautiful human being, Galadriel Allman.
And Barry Oakley would die a year to the day later on a motorcycle.
Yep. He never got over Dwayne's death,
No.
and there's some speculation that might have been a suicide. I don't know, but
Wow.
yeah, it's just it's a sad story. The band carried on. Brothers and Sisters is a great fucking album.
Yes.
Those three albums in the early '90s are really fucking good.
They're surprisingly good.
Yeah.
I kind of gave them a wide berth after Brothers
Yeah.
and Sisters.
Yeah.
But in my defense, their output in the '70s was pretty watered down.
Yeah, let's see. Greg was dating Cher and hanging out with movie stars, so they were all distracted. Win Loser. Here are the mediocre albums: Win Loser Draw, Enlightened Rogues, Reach for the Sky, Brothers of the Road. Just mediocre, and
Yeah,
I think
Draw.
by the end,
Draw the what was the Win Lose or Draw? I think it's a live album.
No.
No?
Wipe the windows, check the oil,
Oh,
dollar
that's
gap.
it. That's
That's the
it.
one. Yeah. So by the end, they had a what's that word? What is that lame instrument from the 80s? Keytar. It's like a
A
keyboard,
guitar?
but
Yeah.
they would hold it like a guitar.
Yeah, it's what the outfield did. It was terrible.
Those new wave bands would do, and
Oh,
the Allman Brothers had some guy playing one of those. I mean,
no.
it just went to hell in the early
Oh.
'80s. So avoid that era.
Mm.
But yeah, I don't know, man. So the story of the one and only Duane Allman is inspiring as hell, and also just really sad. You know what could have
Yeah,
been.
just a tortured soul. His father being murdered after giving somebody a ride, and that would they get like $6 from the gas, and he gets shot for his troubles.
Yeah,
Thanks, guys. I got 2 kids at home. That's awesome.
yeah.
But and then Greg would just battle addiction forever. But he had his moments, some successful solo career. Just before the bullets fly has some decent moments. Um, I'm no angel, kind of a big radio hit back in the
Yeah.
day.
There's a stretch of highway in Macon designated as Duane Allman Boulevard. So I haven't made a pilgrimage to Duane Allman Boulevard yet, but I will.
Well, before we go, the last thing was the groupies. They had a party house right near Piedmont Park,
Oh,
and
they did.
tell that
Nice.
story with the
Do I know that
the
story?
yeah, the groupie girls. They called themselves after the street.
Oh, right. That's in the book. I don't. You probably remember it better. You tell it.
It was
But
like,
yeah, there's a party house. It was
yeah,
basically a bunch of groupie girls that had a house near Piedmont Park. And these days, basically what happened in the '60s, there was white flight, and after the civil rights era, all the white middle class people took off out of the city and moved to the suburbs and left these big nice houses um, that hippies, all the cool people basically started renting for really cheap or buying for really cheap. And so that whatever house that was near Piedmont Park is probably now a multi-million dollar house again because all the yuppies have moved back in town and uh, what's the word, gentrify the neighborhoods again.
yeah.
But
It was like the Tifton girls or Tifton
yeah,
Street,
they
something.
had a house near Piedmont Park. So whenever the Allman Brothers would come play their free gigs in Piedmont Park, they'd end up going partying over at the groupie
Yeah, and,
house,
and this is the 70s.
laying some major cable like
I'm
all
talking
night long.
about
Yeah.
uh, that basically this house would have been it would have made Motley Crue blush with their
Oh
party.
yeah. Motley Crue got nothing on.
No,
Don't even mention them in the
this is
same
like
sentence as
70s
the Allman
stash
Brothers.
ride. These guys,
Yeah.
they were doing some funky ass
Oh yeah.
shit,
There was
partying
one.
all
There's
night.
some story in that book where they're on tour and they all got the same venereal disease because
Yes.
they run a train on some girl.
Yeah. Come on, man. You gotta.
They all whatever it was crabs or whatever it was. They all
Oh,
they all
I'm sure
had it.
crabs ran rampant.
Yeah, yeah.
But
That's funny.
anyway, so that's Duane Allman, kids. Do some research, discover some solid, real, no overdubs, no,
Yeah.
this was the real shit.
And again, I just want to be clear. When you say kids and do some research, you are talking to about 5% of our audience because
Well,
the
that's
majority of our
because
audience.
our core audience doesn't force
Yeah,
their younger.
right. So our 81% of our audience, I'm looking at the analytics, is between the ages of 45 to 59.
Yeah, but by
9%,
you weighing in on that, that just makes it so we have to, you got to branch out,
9%
push the envelope.
is 9% is between the ages of 35 to 44. So the kids that don't know this shit that we're hipping them, that's 5% of our audience. So you 5%, go out
Gotta
and fucking close down TikTok, put your
Yeah.
cell phone away,
Figure out,
crank up some fucking Allman Brothers, and learn about life.
learn about life.
You
Exactly.
little bastards.
Um,
Stop
go,
listening to Taylor Swift. That's a
yeah,
fucking
go
virus.
download Black Hearted Woman and
Yeah.
listen to it until you get it. So,
What the hell is wrong with you people?
yeah. So that's episode 49. Check out the website, snagsandsilky.com. Buy a t-shirt and a hoodie. Christmas is right around the corner, kids. Let's get this going. And listen to the other 48 episodes, but this is episode 49.
Listen to all episodes 1 through 49 before next week because we got the big 50th episode.
Big
And
50, and it's not going to be about Hawaii. So
yeah, it'll be a little something different, but it'll be fascinating and interesting, and y'all cats
damn
will dig
straight.
it. So we'll see you then.
All
Peace out.
right. Peace.